let's face it, growing up sucks. There are a lot of things I hated about growing up, namely that I never actually grew, been the same height since I was like 3. Um, and then when I got older, I adopted the Peter Pan theory that you can actually grow old, you just never have to grow up. So I'm basically like 6 or 7 in a very old, wrinkly body, and never the twain shall meet. But the things that we go through when we grow up, the growing pains of our growth plates, the changing of the voice, which is really awesome for guys. You have that moment where they're kind of singing to you when they talk. But I say all that to say that one of the girls who works for me, she told me that there was a story I told her that got her through the first 2 weeks of her addiction recovery program, and I gave her a visual about a seed that, if in order to become a tree, it has to push through the soil. But the first thing it has to do, one, fall off the tree, die, and then it bursts open, and what's inside comes through and pushes through the soil and the roots and the rocks and whatever else happens to be in the dirt that it has to get through to become a tree. And when it breaks the surface, then it starts to produce fruit, fruit being branches, leaves, and flowering buds. But the growth process that made it become the tree, the little stub of a tree, was actually breaking the surface. So all that crap, all that stuff that it had to go through was what gave it the characteristics to actually be a developed tree or stump of a tree to become a full-on tree. And that is something that we struggle with, I think, as humans, is that we don't realize that I can be born and I can grow older, but I will be the same thing my whole life if I never experience troubles and trials and testing or anything that comes up against me. Anything that's inconvenient, anything that's trying, anything that's terrible, anything that's traumatic, anything that's, negative in our minds. If I don't face anything, I will never develop skill, and I'll never become a functioning human being. And so even Jesus said that unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground, it will just remain one seed. So it has to die so that it can produce more seeds. That's in John 12:24. And in Hebrews 12:2, it says, "We look unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God." Part of Christ's growth process in spiritually connecting to his Father and humanly developing strength of character was to submit himself to the authority of God, knowing that the joy that was set before him was a reconciled creation and his rightful place in the heavenly kingdom. If he can endure the shame of the cross, and it says he despised the shame because it was naked, open shame. Everything was laid bare. But he was willing to endure so that all could be accomplished. And that is what James 1 talks about for us. It says, "Consider it great joy when you experience various trials, knowing that that is the testing of your faith that produces endurance. And endurance works its complete work so that you can be mature and lack nothing." So if there's anything in your life that looks out of whack, seems unbearable, thank God that it is a time of testing. Thank God it's a time of trial and a time of conflict, because he sees fit that you go through that so that you can produce the qualities that he wants that are like Christ. So I just want to encourage you today that growth can suck. It can be painful. You may not get very big, but you can be very strong. You may not get other characteristics that you think you should have, but you will develop the characteristics you need for your ministry. So just let the Lord have his perfect work in you. Trust that he is giving you all the things that you need to get it done, and allow him to develop that characteristic in you that he wants to develop. Thank you, Lord, for giving us trials. Let us see the problems as possibilities and potential. And I pray that for you this week. Have a good one.